Cool disclaimer. The content of this video is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified health provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition, and always get proper treatment for serious medical conditions. Legal disclaimer. Use only legal measures to combat the virus and cooperate with government officials, first responders, and healthcare workers to make the coronavirus a thing of the past and create a perfect society ASAP. Use common sense, logic, and help your fellow humans if necessary, also to lower the risk of being vaccinated mandatorily ourselves and to end the pandemic as soon as possible. The objective of my videos is not to slander people nor to incite or trigger people, but to do the opposite, exposing it when people are wrongly accused, and to create universal peace, world peace, or just peace on earth. People are innocent till proven guilty in the court of law. One who knows of evidence must testify, not to convict anyone without a fair trial. Greetings, superior beings, greetings, supreme being. We are all the human race, our common enemy is death. Welcome on Perfect Society. I'm Ulrich Hofmann, and you're watching broadcast. 2 boys drop dead in China while wearing masks during gym class. And 5G Starlink VLEO satellites, 60 GHz, very low Earth orbit. Okay, what have I got in this broadcast for you all? Qua intel, data, information that is useful to create a better timeline, a better future. First, let's see if I can get it on Oprah. Number of coronavirus cases at the moment, 29,107,971 according to Worldometer.info. I've just reloaded this. Total number of deaths is nearing 1,926,910. Of course, there are still more HIV deaths. The HIV virus has killed more people than SARS-CoV-2 virus. Yet they're not frantically working on a vaccine for HIV, but they're frantically working on a vaccine for coronavirus. The Netherlands, coronavirus cases 82,099 and deaths 6,254. And I made this graphic, so I put it in here. These lines I could remove also. And I put these two together basically, so it seems like this one is a bit stretched or whatever. But this is the number total coronavirus deaths, and this is total coronavirus cases. You can see it's a different scale, of course. But here what's special is that at a certain point, somewhere around July, August, beginning of August, the number of deaths is almost not increasing, only the number of cases is increasing. And some people think it may have to do with unreliable RT-PCR test results showing false positives. Next, my channel videos, some new videos, my latest video. Kushner equals the beast and quantum dot the 2 equals the mark. Okay, and then I've searched on masks kill plus died wearing a mask, because I had heard in some broadcast, I don't know if it was Jense or the Last American Vagabond or some other YouTuber, that 2 boys died running with a mask on. And I got an article that didn't want to load basically, It was that New York Daily News. Let's see. Unfortunately, our website is currently unavailable in most European countries. That's interesting. The first one I clicked on is not available. And then also Snopes fact check. So we can check that out first. Where is Snopes? Dead boys in China die after wearing face masks during physical exercise. Mostly true about this rating. So we can read that. I've also found some other articles. I did another search on 2 Chinese boys die while wearing face masks in gym class. That's the New York Daily News article, and then we can find that article on New York Post, for example. 2 boys drop dead in China while wearing masks during gym class. And Daily Mail Co. UK, 2 Chinese boys drop dead during PE lessons while wearing face masks amid concerns over students' fitness following 3 months of school closure. The pupils from 2 Chinese cities died of sudden cardiac arrest within a week. Lee 15 collapsed after jogging in PE class while wearing a face mask on April 24th. The other boy, 14, reportedly died during a running exam whilst donning a mask. Chinese cities have cancelled running tests amid concerns over students' fitness. 4th of May 2020. What are PE lessons? I wonder if most people don't know what PE lessons are. And the computer is strangely hanging it very slow at the moment. Physical activity lessons. Alright. So, then I think I'll read this, the New York Post article. And perhaps also the, what was it, Daily Mail. And the Snopes.com article. I'll put the links in the description. And what else have we got? Starlink, the frequency bands. So in Wiki we don't read about 60 GHz. The SpaceX non-geostationary orbit communications satellite constellation will operate in the high frequency bands above 24 GHz. So they do write that it will be above 24 GHz. And then I searched on the SpaceX satellite frequency bands. According to filings with the FCC, the LEO low Earth orbit satellites will broadcast in the KU 12 to 18 GHz and KA 26.5 to 40 GHz spectral bands, which are typical bands for communication satellites. The VLEO satellites, very low Earth orbit satellites, however, will make use of the V-band, a higher frequency band ranging from 40 to 75 GHz. SpaceX. Spectrum.ieee.org. That's the YouTube selection website for this text that we find here about the VLEO satellite. So I might read this. IEEE Spectrum. They're taking me, or basically, well, if you want to call it a tech, with the Nano, the DARPA Nanofly modeled after the lowly Blowfly. So these flies are remotely controlled, and some things cannot be a coincidence, you know. Anyway, that's in theory, of course. I cannot prove it. If I do that with scalar waves, I'd need a scalar detector. A Effects of long-term exposure to 60 GHz millimeter wavelength radiation on the genotoxicity and heat shock protein HSP expression of cells derived from human eye. I think that's not what we need, so I'm not going to read that. It's just a search result and I hadn't read it yet. What's this? EMFtests.com. Countless studies show 5G frequencies cause illness. Free ebook for a better life. Well, I could do that. No newsletters, I think. Is this working? I don't have time for this now. But then we cannot get to the top of the article when this is on the screen. First the other articles then. Ofcom.org.uk 5G and oxygen molecules PDF. That looks interesting, perhaps we can take a look at that. Because some people have claimed that 5G 60 GHz radiation is absorbed by oxygen. It's also illustrated here, so then I can show it on the picture slideshow. I've stretched the image a little bit. Oxygen at 60 GHz will not accept your body. What will happen to you if you do not have oxygen? Cyanosis, oxygen deprivation, blue lips, and people will die eventually if that persists, that oxygen deprivation. "5G 60 GHz oxygen absorption, you and coronavirus." Hemoglobin, oxygen, and iron. We will read about that on stop5g.cz. And another fact that I've covered is that microwave radiation increases people's cell membrane permeability so that it's easier for the virus to enter their cells, and it decreases the amount of peripheral T lymphocytes. Magnetobiology underlying physical problems. Book people can get in the Google bookstore, and then it shows a bunch of molecules or whatever, and perhaps it shows the electron spin being affected by the 60 GHz radiation. 60 GHz is absorbed by oxygen, like 2.45 GHz used in cancer microwave ovens is absorbed by water molecules. Blood in, alveoli, CO2 out, O2 in, blood out. Stop 5G. And replace it with scalar technology, Tesla's radiant energy patent, using curative frequencies rather than population reduction frequencies. That's the idea for a perfect society. So then the question is, what is proven and how can the government allow that 60 GHz radiation to be used? And the symptoms of cyanosis are very comparable, if not identical, to the symptoms of COVID-19. So that's another thing that's interesting about this. Anyway, let's go back to the Opera browser. What did I search on? For a picture, 5G satellite 60 GHz. And then the first thing it finds is stop5g.cz. www.01.net. Musk talks public satellite internet in 6 months. Subversion of 5G will not be 6G. Posted on 2024-25. April 2020. So we can take a look at this. It has some interesting illustrations. Current 420 satellites. How many very low Earth orbit satellites, I wonder. And these are mobile, I think, so they're not geostationary. So they can place them anywhere. If I understand it correctly, but I'm not certain, so you'd have to verify. The satellite is gradually rising above the fascinating aurora. Not only that, but shooting on the ground has also been affected. So we can read this as well. So the government should test if 60 gigahertz is causing problems, of course. It's the job of the government to protect and serve the taxpayers. And if they're involved in population reduction, then the legal person called the government is committing an illegal act, of course. And they should be arrested. And people shouldn't follow illegal orders. They can go to prison for following illegal orders, while the person that gave them can be set free, basically, or never go to jail. For example, with Bush. Anyway, for now, I'm gonna start with the 2 schoolboys that died wearing a mask. And I think that there's nothing that proves that it wasn't caused by the mask. So we can look if there are things that make it likely that it was caused by wearing that mask. And it may fit in with their program. They want to program us to make us believe that CO2 is bad, while in reality CO2 is good for you. It makes the plants grow. And drinking too much water can be deadly as well, but in general it's good to stay hydrated and drink more rather than less. Many people are dehydrated. The article is scrolling very slowly, but perhaps I can solve that with the end key. And then I have to scroll up. So that's nasty on Daily Mail UK. But it's an interesting article, so I might want to read this. And so I have to scroll up. It takes a while to select the text. So the question is, how far do we have to scroll up? This would have taken ages. Weird layout. Perhaps it's the Opera browser. And it scrolls very slowly. But we're getting there. We don't want commercials. And I don't want the other text to be read, so then I have to reselect this. And I think from the bottom may be best. If I click here, then it should select this. And it's possible they're blocking that with wireless energy to make everything I do fail, to annihilate 7 billion people with vaccines, of course. Not with the virus. The virus isn't deadly enough. And Bill Gates expressed his wish to reduce the global population, so millions of people know about that, fortunately. So let's see if we can select the text, or if I should start with another article, perhaps. Here the text seems to be missing. It's loading. It's slow, ding ding ding. Share a comment on this article. And then I could use the home key, perhaps. Perhaps that's not working. Finally strongly, and the fly is on my forehead. I don't know if you can all see it. It's tickling me. Back. Now they let my father come in. Wacht even. They let my father come in and they let the page disappear. So let's read another one first. And they were also blocking the speech engine. So I will restart the speech engine while I talk with my father. Okay, so I'm restarting the text-to-speech engine. They do this type of thing so people tune out, so stay tuned in. I think it is very important.
2 boys drop dead in China while wearing masks. 2 boys drop.
So they're blocking the text-to-speech engine, obviously.
2 boys drop dead in China while wearing masks during gym class by Jackie Salome 6, 2020, 10:02 a.m. Updated in large image. A group of children wearing face masks, amid concerns of the COVID-19 coronavirus, running along an under construction street in Beijing. A group of children wearing face masks, amid concerns of the COVID-19 coronavirus, running along a street in Beijing. Wangzhou, Getty Images. More on China. Chinese virologist claims she has proof COVID-19 was made in Wuhan lab. China would reportedly rather see TikTok banned than sold to US company Disney's Mulan off to slow box office start in China. Trump won't give ByteDance more time for TikTok sale. 2 Chinese boys drop dead within a week of one another while wearing face masks during gym class, according to a report. The students, who were both 14, were each running laps for a physical examination test when they suddenly collapsed on the track, Australian outlet 7 News reported. One of the teens was only minutes into his gym class when he fell backward. April 24 at Danchang Kaiuan Middle School in Henan Province, according to the outlet. He was wearing a mask while lapping the running track, then he suddenly fell backwards and hit his head on the ground, his father, who was only identified as Lee, told the outlet. His dad said teachers and students tried to help him, to no avail. The death certificate listed the cause as sudden cardiac arrest, but no autopsy was performed, the outlet said. The boy's father said he believes that the mask his son was required to wear to school played a role in his death. I suspect it was because he was wearing a mask, he said, adding that it couldn't have been comfortable wearing a mask while running. See also. China launches smear campaign against Pompeo after coronavirus criticism. But Cao Xiu, professor at Shaanxi University of Chinese Medicine, said it's unlikely that the mask caused the boy to suffocate. I don't think mask wearing has caused this sudden death, Cao said, though she added that it was impossible to say without an autopsy. 6 days after his death, the second student collapsed at Changsha's Xiangjun Future Experimental School in Hunan Province, the outlet reported. He had been wearing an N95 respirator and running a 1,000 meter exam when the fatal incident occurred, the report said. It's unclear whether an autopsy had been ordered. Though it's not known whether the masks played a role in either death, Several schools in Tianjin and Shanghai have cancelled physical education exams, according to the report.
So people can read this on the New York Post, and then we take a look at Mail Online, Daily Mail Co. UK. Let's see if it can now copy this text and read it. Might be a pretty good article.
2 Chinese boys dropped dead during lessons while wearing face masks amid concerns over students' fitness following 3 months of school closure. The pupils from 2 Chinese cities died of sudden cardiac arrest within a week. Li, 15, collapsed after jogging in class while wearing a face mask on April 24. The other boy, 14, reportedly died during a running exam while donning a mask. Chinese cities have cancelled running tests amid concerns over students' fitness by Amelia Zhang for Mail Online. Published, 10:49 BST, May 4, 2020, updated, 10:52 BST, May 4, 2020. Email 2.2k shares 2. View comments. 2 schoolboys in China have died of sudden cardiac arrest in the space of a week as they take part in lessons while wearing face masks. The students, from 2 different Chinese cities, both suddenly collapsed on their school's running track and were subsequently pronounced dead on April 24 and April 30 respectively. Chinese education authorities have cancelled running tests for this term as a result of concerns over students' fitness following 3 months of school closures. A 15-year-old schoolboy, known by his surname Li, was declared dead on April 24 after he collapsed during a lesson at the Danqiang Kaiyuan Middle School in Henan Province of Central China. Li is pictured here with his father, Mr. Li plus 9. A 15-year-old schoolboy, known by his surname Li, was declared dead on April 24 after he collapsed during a lesson at the Danqiang Kaiyuan Middle School in Henan Province of Central China.
I'm wondering why they made his face unrecognizable, or I guess they did.
Li is pictured here with his father, Mr. Li. The student's father, Mr. Li, told the press that his son was running in laps on the school's sports ground before Li fell backwards. The picture shows the school Li attended before he died plus 9. The student's father, Mr. Li, told the press that his son was running in laps on the school's sports ground before Li fell backwards. The picture shows the school Li attended before he died. It is believed that the boys had had trouble breathing during the exercise due to their face masks. Their deaths came after another student also reportedly dropped dead during a lesson on April 14. But it has remained unclear if the pupil had been wearing a face mask. Li, a 15-year-old student from Central China, was declared dead on April 24 after he collapsed on campus at the Danqiang Kaiyuan Middle School in Henan Province. The student's father, Mr. Li, told the press that his son was running in laps on the school's sports ground before Li fell backwards. It happened within 2 to 3 minutes during his class. He was wearing a mask while lapping the running track, then he suddenly fell backwards and hit his head on the ground, said Mr. Li. The parents said that a local hospital issued a death certificate claiming sudden cardiac arrest as the cause of death, but Mr. Li believed that his son's death was caused by wearing a face mask during strenuous exercise. Students wearing face masks are pictured reading books on a playground of Pingmen Middle School on the first day of its reopening on April 25. Plus 9 students wearing face masks are pictured reading books on a playground of Pingmen Middle School on the first day of its reopening on April 25. Students wearing face masks line up to have their temperature checked before entering a canteen at number 16 Middle School on the first day of its reopening on April 27. Plus 9 students wearing face masks line up to have their temperature checked before entering a canteen at number 16 Middle School on the first day of its reopening on April 27. It was sunny and their class was in the afternoon when it was at least 20 degrees Celsius, the Chinese father suggested. It couldn't have been comfortable wearing a mask while running. Mr. Lee's son had only been back at school for 4 days after classes resumed on April 20 for the first time since late January following 3 months of coronavirus closure. Liang Xiu, professor at the Shaanxi University of Chinese Medicine, disagreed with suggestions that the face mask might have caused Lee to suffocate to death due to a lack of oxygen. Related articles. Previous one. Next. Chinese children are forced to sit in class with books. Chinese tourists ignore social distancing and swarm to a 1,500 students in one Chinese province are caught with high. Chinese children must wear 1-meter hats to keep social. Share this article. Share 2.2k shares. I don't think mask donning has caused this sudden death, said Imscow. If this student had trouble breathing, he would have been conscious of it and wouldn't have continued to run with the mask on until his heart stopped.
If these were healthy boys, then I think it is likely and they shouldn't all just assume that it wasn't caused by the mask. Basically, when they're doing physical exercise, I was cycling with a GVS Ellipse B3 filter mask on, and I can assure you that it's not a fun experience, though it is a very breathable mask. It is too rubbery, and I was able to smell, for example, a chicken cadaver being baked at the supermarket and soaps and stuff. And later I found out that the virus virion size, virus particle size, is 50 to 200 nanometers, and it goes through even a P3 and N95 filter mask. So masks kill, and I've covered 42 studies that show that masks are neither effective nor safe. A surgical mask is worn by doctors when they do surgery, so that no spittle ends up, or wet particles, or even aerosols that are breathed out. Don't know if people also breathe out aerosols, but they always talk about these wet particles, the droplets, etc., tiny droplets that we can't even see. And then it makes sense, you could argue, though it should be very breathable, they should have enough air to do their job, basically. And then I also read that it's not recommended or not a good idea to wear a mask only over your mouth or nose. So the idea is breathing in through our nose and breathing out through our mouth. But, well, I think it's better to wear a mesh mask or fishnet stockings mask. Just a black stockings mask is also very breathable. If there is a rule, then there is a rule. Then you can get fined if you don't wear that mask in public transport, vehicles, etc., or wherever it is mandated. So let's continue reading.
The professor added that the only way to determine the cause of Lee's death was to carry out an autopsy. The student's family declined to conduct an autopsy to preserve the boy's body, according to the press. It remains disclosed if there were any conclusive links between Lee's death and wearing a face mask. Pictured, students wearing face masks have a class at a middle school in Shanghai on April 27 +9 pictured. Students wearing face masks have a class at a middle school in Shanghai on April 27. Tens of thousands of graduating students in China have returned to the campus after spending 3 months at home due to coronavirus. Pictured, students wearing face masks line up to have their temperature checked at the entrance of a middle school in Shanghai on April 27 +9. Tens of thousands of graduating students in China have returned to the campus after spending 3 months at home due to coronavirus. Pictured, students wearing face masks line up to have their temperature checked at the entrance of a middle school in Shanghai on April 27. Dr. Ran Ziming, a chief medic from Zhenhua Hospital at Shanghai Jiaotong University, echoed Moscow's remark by suggesting that the pupil's death could be linked to undetected heart diseases. It is possible that exercising caused Li's sudden death. Another reason could be that he had some heart-related diseases that were not detected before, Dr. Ran told People's Daily. Running while wearing a face mask definitely affects the amount of oxygen a person inhales. But it would not necessarily cause sudden death. The other schoolboy, who was not identified, was reportedly taking part in a 1,000 meter, 0.62 miles, running exam while wearing an N95 respirator on April 30 when he collapsed and died at the Zhangjian Future Experimental School in Changsha, Hunan province of southern China. He is also thought to have died due to breathing difficulties during the exam, Chinese media report. It is unknown if an autopsy has been ordered to determine the cause of death. A 16-year-old student from eastern Chinese city Wenzhou was pronounced dead after he collapsed and died whilst running during a lesson on April 14. But it remains unclear if he was wearing a face mask whilst exercising. According to the press, schools in Shanghai installed screening facilities featuring ultra-red thermometers at the gate to monitor students' temperatures when there are more than 100 people on campus. +9 schools in Shanghai installed screening facilities featuring ultra-red thermometers at the gate to monitor students' temperatures when there are more than 100 people on campus. The news came as tens of millions of students have returned to the campus in China after they spent 3 months at home following the coronavirus lockdown. Authorities from several major cities, including Tianjin and Shanghai, have cancelled running tests for students this year amid concerns over pupils' fitness following the school closures. The provinces of Shaanxi and Zhejiang have also removed running from exams, while manufacturing hub Shenzhen said it would offer an alternative option for its physical training exam due to the Guangdong provincial government's decision to leave plans unchanged. The provinces of Henan as well as Hunan, where the 2 deaths occurred, have yet announced changes regarding lessons or exams. The news came as tens of millions.
Actually, it does look quite cool, an N95 mask like he's wearing basically. And I wore a gas mask in a discotheque once in Paradiso. I don't know if Paradiso is gone now. I have to check. And I'd hate that if Paradiso is not there anymore. I have to Google it, but I think I heard something like that on the radio, but I couldn't believe it basically. Anyway, let's continue reading.
Of students have returned to the campus in China after they spent 3 months at home following the coronavirus lockdown. Pictured, a student wearing a face mask leaves a high school in Beijing on April 27, +9. The news came as tens of millions of students have returned to the campus in China after they spent 3 months at home following the coronavirus lockdown. pictured, a student wearing a face mask leaves a high school in Beijing on April 27. Authorities from several major cities, including Tianjin and Shanghai, have cancelled running tests for students this year amid concerns over pupils' fitness following the school closures. Students wearing face masks are seen leaving a school in Beijing on April 27 plus 9. Authorities from several major cities, including Tianjin and Shanghai, have cancelled running tests for students this year amid concerns over pupils' fitness following the school closures. Students wearing face masks are seen leaving a school in Beijing on April 27. Read more.
Alright, so that was the Daily Mail Co UK article. Well, perhaps my computer is too slow. I doubt if other people have these problems. We read this, of course, and then did boys in China die after wearing face masks during physical exercise? And then they claim mostly true, but what's undetermined, it's unknown whether the boys wearing face masks played any role in their deaths, or was coincidental. Well, then the question is, of course, if they were healthy, no underlying conditions, then it makes it more likely that the masks played a role in their deaths. And of course they haven't disproven that that's the case either, so we shouldn't just assume things, but do research, scientific studies, do reproducible tests, so that we can prove things beyond any reasonable doubt and base our policy on that and not on computer models that use unreliable parameters or just made up parameters basically to suit their program, the population reduction agenda. So then I've covered that sufficiently. Now I can move on to the 5G part of the show. Let's see, what was the broadcast name? It's right here. Live streaming. It's not showing that at the top. Two boys with 5G Starlink VLEO satellite 60 GHz. Okay. Then perhaps it's best to start with the wiki article, you could argue. So here we read: the SpaceX non-geostationary orbit communications satellite constellation will operate in the high frequency bands above 24 GHz, quote, where steerable Earth station transmit antennas would have a wider geographic impact and significantly lower satellite altitudes magnify the impact of aggregate interference from terrestrial transmissions. And it also uses the KU band and the KA band, I think, KU and KA. KU 12 to 18 GHz, KA 26.5 to 40 GHz. That is wavelengths from slightly over 1 cm down to 7.5 millimeters. And the term millimeter wave band also. Well, I did a broadcast about this. Some compare this to the fictional company of the movie Terminator, Skynet. Starlink equals Skynet something. But of course it can be, because Skynet is virtual. It doesn't exist, and Starlink does. So let's see. Demolishing contaminated homes, fitting in with it. Compact city plan of Bill Gates and others. He talked about these compact cities as well, and I did a broadcast about it. 5G crowd control advanced beamforming is what it's called, so they can direct the energy at a person's 5G cancer cell phone, and that has advantages and disadvantages, but basically the advanced beamformed beam goes through all people in between the cancer cell phone and the antenna, and it's a more concentrated beam basically of cancer cell phone microwave death tower radiation. So find out what you're being dosed with a measuring instrument. The gigahertz solutions I've used for years, but that's more expensive than the EMF 390. But that is a must, you could argue, because the building biologists advise people to keep it below 0.1 microwatt per square meter, and the EMF 390 only measures large amounts of energy more accurately. So if you're measuring a low amount of energy, then it's no good for that. However, you can see if there's something on. If you turn on a cancer cell phone, you can see the spectrum, you can see what type of radiation it is. I did a review about the EMF 390 as well. So if that's about 4 times as cheap as the gigahertz solutions HF35C, then many people would go for the EMF 390, and that's good to see that there's radiation in your environment, what types, and some of it can be switched off easily. There may also be devices that you didn't expect of that they irradiate you, and it's shieldable with aluminum foil. So if there are outside sources irradiating you in your home, then people can put aluminum foil on the wall, make a cage of Faraday also on the ceiling, 5G satellites, or wear a shielding hoodie and a shielding hat. The 60 gigahertz VGig boxes that I've covered can be anywhere, people can still buy them. So they haven't said, well, hey, there are scientists that say it causes problems with oxygen absorption by our body, so we should first halt the production and put a warning out there until we've determined that they're absolutely safe, which they haven't. And we've seen that in the, what was it? House of Congress, I think, where they've spoken, they've asked these companies if they've invested in any research to check how safe 5G radiation is, and they haven't done any, is what that person said. And I think many people have seen that video. Anyway, let's move on. Starlink phase, Starlink initial phase, 1584 satellites into 72 orbital planes of 22 satellites each. Okay, I used that for a previous broadcast. Oh, I have pre-selected the VGig box, comparing it to a Hellraiser box. And the next one is the 60 gigahertz chart that shows that it's absorbed by oxygen. This picture is not implying that the antennas produce viruses, though everything is energy. It's clear they emit microwave radiation, And it's also clear that everything has a natural frequency. And some people think that the virus is a natural reaction of our body to a new electromagnetic field. Every time they put new satellites out there, there's a new virus or disease going around. However, I don't know if they have any scientific backup for that. And others think that animal viruses cannot be in humans unless they were injected or inhaled, etc. 98% of energy absorbed by O2 at 60 GHz. Not CO2, but O2 oxygen. Alright, let's see if I have any other pre-selections. No, that's it for now. Okay. So I'll leave it on this one for now. Starlink, perhaps it's best to read the intro or not. Is safety in this? No matches. Safety is not in the wiki article. Pressing the home button doesn't work. Okay, let's just read the standard intro for the first part of the wiki article.
Starlink is a satellite internet constellation being constructed by SpaceX 23, providing satellite internet access. 4.5. The constellation will consist of thousands of mass-produced small satellites in low Earth orbit, LEO, working in combination with ground transceivers. SpaceX also plans to sell some of the satellites for military, 6, scientific, or exploratory purposes. 7. The SpaceX Satellite Development Facility in Redmond, Washington houses the Starlink research, development, manufacturing, and on-orbit control operations. The total cost of the decade-long project to design, build, and deploy the constellation was estimated by SpaceX in May 2018 to be about $10 billion. 8. Product development began in 2015, with the first 2 prototype test flight satellites launched in February 2018. A second set of test satellites and the first large deployment of a piece of the constellation occurred in May 2019 when the first 60 operational satellites were launched. 2.9. As of September 2020, SpaceX is launching up to 60 satellites at a time, aiming to deploy 1,440 of the 260 kilograms, 570 pounds, spacecraft to provide near global service by late 2021 or 2022. 11. SpaceX was initially targeting a private beta service in the northern United States and Canada by August 2020 with a public beta following in November 2020, service beginning at high latitudes between 44 degrees 52 degrees north. 12.13. Concerns have been raised about the long-term danger of space debris resulting from placing thousands of satellites in orbits above 600 kilometers, 370 miles, 1415, as well as the negative impact to observational and radio astronomy on Earth. 16. In response, SpaceX has lowered the Starlink satellite orbits to 550 kilometers, 340 miles, or below, 17, and launched prototype satellites with anti-reflective coating 18. And an experimental sunshade 19. On October 15, 2019, the United States Federal Communications Commission submitted filings to the International Telecommunication Union on SpaceX's behalf to arrange spectrum for 30,000 additional Starlink satellites to supplement the 12,000 Starlink satellites already approved by the FCC.
Okay, we're now on stop5g.cz, Let's read this.
5G minus 60 GHz wireless network, oxygen absorption, unable to breath. Oxygen, the atom is O. Oxygen, the molecule is O2. Two atoms together. These two atoms form the oxygen molecule and share some electrons. 60 GHz causes electrons surrounding oxygen molecules to spin, akin to how high-powered microwaves running on 2.4 impact molecules in food such as water. Their heating, in part, by impacting those molecules to rotate or oscillate with each wave. The movement energy from the rotation of these super tiny water molecules helps heat the rest of the food. In a similar way that 2.4 causes H20 to oscillate, 5G/60 GHz even at low power causes electrons on oxygen molecules to spin. Changes to the spin frequencies on oxygen electrons impact human biology. The impact of oxygen molecules spinning the electrons is that it makes the hemoglobin unable to uptake the oxygen and get it to the rest of your body. 60 GHz wireless network. 60 GHz V-band wireless has many technical advantages as high-speed links or lack of interference. The 57 to 64 GHz band is located in the millimeter wave portion of the electromagnetic spectrum, where the wavelength varies from 10 mm, 30 GHz, down to 1 mm, 300 GHz. Oxygen absorption of 60 GHz. Point-to-point wireless systems operating at 60 GHz have been used for many years by the intelligence community for high-security communications and by the military for satellite-to-satellite communications. Their interest in this frequency band stems from a phenomenon of nature. The oxygen molecule, O2, absorbs electromagnetic energy at 60 GHz like a piece of food in a microwave oven at 2,4 GHz. This absorption occurs to a much higher degree at 60 GHz than at lower frequencies. This is the evil plan to kill our nature. This 60 GHz wireless network should be stopped immediately. Also, ignorance of people is involved. We need your help to stop this. 60 GHz wireless networks. Adverse health effects of 5G mobile networking technology under real-life conditions. This article identifies adverse effects of non-ionizing non-visible radiation, hereafter called wireless radiation, reported in the premier biomedical literature. It emphasizes that most of the laboratory experiments conducted to date are not designed to identify the more severe adverse effects reflective of the real-life operating environment in which wireless radiation systems operate. Many experiments do not include pulsing and modulation of the carrier signal. The vast majority do not account for synergistic adverse effects of other toxic stimuli, such as chemical and biological, acting in concert with the wireless radiation. This article also presents evidence that the nascent 5G mobile networking technology will affect not only the skin and eyes, as commonly believed, but will have adverse systemic effects as well. Identifies wide spectrum of adverse health effects of non-ionizing non-visible radiation. Most laboratory experiments were not designed to identify the more severe adverse effects reflective of real-life conditions. Many experiments do not include the real-life pulsing and modulation of the carrier signal. Vast majority of experiments do not account for synergistic adverse effects of other toxic stimuli with wireless radiation. 5G mobile networking technology will affect not only the skin and eyes, but will have adverse systemic effects as well. Exosome, vesicle magnetobiology underlying physical problems. 5G, 60 GHz, oxygen absorption, U, and coronavirus. 60 GHz oxygen band, precise broadening and central frequencies of fine structure lines, absolute absorption profile at atmospheric pressure, and revision of mixing coefficients. 60 GHz wireless networks. Stop 5G.cz ArgorderDestiny.org. The weaving of a D-guidal web of GL0BAL-C0NTR0L. Or not the PL attained for T0TAL-C0NTR0L published 2010 5G, 60 GHz, oxygen absorption, U, and coronavirus posted on February 26, 2020 by Argorder Destiny. I transcribed some of Dana Ashley's video relative to the impact of 5G/60 GHz on the human body. The transcript is not word for word. The impacts of 5G/60 GHz are not widely published, but here's what we know from promotional material from big telecom companies. It reads 60 GHz has a very distinct impact on none other than oxygen itself. Yes, articles from companies touting the benefits of 5G openly admit 60 GHz is absorbable by oxygen, seen in this graph. Frequencies under 60 GHz are not impacted. Once it hits 60 GHz it spikes and becomes hugely absorbed by oxygen. This company article selling products that will run on 60 GHz says it's going to help its interference levels. https://www.60ghzwireless.com/60ghztechnology/60ghz technology V-band carrier class radios for peer-to-peer P2MP wireless networks / Isn't that nice? They don't want your first shooter video games to lag. And most of us know from mainstream releases promoting 5G that things like water and trees are going to get in the way of this frequency. So how does this even make sense unless their intentions are something besides faster speeds? 13 minutes knowing this frequency impacts oxygen, why mess with absorption of oxygen in the human body? The way 60 GHz impacts oxygen is this. From the book Magnetobiology, Underlying Physical Problems. Effects of electromagnetic fields on living organisms. Oxygen, the atom is O. Oxygen, the molecule is O2. Two atoms together. These two atoms form the oxygen molecule and share some electrons. 60 GHz causes electrons surrounding oxygen molecules to spin, akin to how high-powered microwaves running on 2.4 impact molecules in food such as water. They're heating, in part, by impacting those molecules to rotate or oscillate with each wave. The movement energy from the rotation of these super tiny water molecules helps heat the rest of the food. In a similar way that 2.4 causes H20 to oscillate, 5G/60 GHz even at low power causes electrons on oxygen molecules to spin. Changes to the spin frequencies on oxygen electrons impact human biology. When you breathe air into your lungs it gets oxygen into your blood, brain, tissues etc. and oxygen entering your lungs gets picked up by a very important iron-containing protein called hemoglobin in your blood. The impact of oxygen molecules spinning the electrons is that it makes the hemoglobin unable to uptake the oxygen and get it to the rest of your body. Shouldn't the fact that 60 GHz fundamentally interacts with oxygen, the most abundant and arguably most important element to all of biological life, be headline news that stops everything until we deeply test the implications of that? https://b/y5c3@gk. Flu and microwave symptoms are almost identical. Some symptoms people attribute to the flu are identical to symptoms of radiation sickness. http://radiationdangers.com/5G/ Is the coronavirus actually microwave illness? Medallion NEM the best Wi-Fi at sea, a clue. What about people who were quarantined at sea? Many of them elderly, many of them with pre-existing health conditions, many of them who had the flu shot. Did they experience microwave sickness? Medallion Net. Video https://www.princess.com/ships-and-experience/ocean medallion/medallionet/. U.S. Senator Blumenthal raises concerns on 5G wireless technology health risks at Senate hearing. https://www.driscoll.com/US Senator Blumenthal raises concerns on 5G wireless technology's potential health risks. Why scientists are worried about 5G and oxygen. We created this video to help you understand the concerns scientists have regarding 5G and to help you form your own opinion. Please share to raise awareness so people take responsibility for their own lives. Thank you. Sincerely, Dorina Agostino, without prejudice and without recourse. http://5G and oxygen. freetobehealthy.net sent via hardwired computer, all wireless turned off to safeguard life.
That's excellent. And of course these people protesting against 5G, you could argue also protested against the 5G satellites, perhaps some even had banners about that. So I'm for totally banning microwave radiation from our reality. It's toxic, and I've covered all these extremely harmful effects. So 5G, 4G are both a health hazard in reality. Both health hazards in reality, so it's scientifically proven, also in reproducible tests, so there is no doubt about it, and people in the mainstream media are lying about it. I don't know if I can just play 5G and oxygen. Is this on YouTube? It's on YouTube. Oh, cool. 8 minutes. Alright, wow. That's interesting. Then I'll watch this via ourcreatordestiny.org, and the other one I wanted to read is a PDF file. So let's watch this first.
Hello, we are part of a team with Dan Winter. Our work is in analyzing the interaction of waves and frequencies with the low frequency waves of the heart and the brain. And with this video we want to provide you with information on the question, why are scientists worried about 5G? If you want to know more about who we are and what we do, you can click on the links on this screen. We will provide all the links in the comment section below the video. So, why are scientists worried about 5G? All the information in this presentation can be found and verified online. As I said, you will find all the links below the video. And the information that is presented in this video is from studies that were performed by or for the telecom industry. We create this video to help you understand and help you form your own nuanced opinion. And high frequencies are needed to send large amounts of data at a high speed. Megahertz means 1 million cycles per second, and 1 gigahertz means 1 billion cycles per second. And for example, a microwave oven works at 2.5 gigahertz, as you can see on the Wikipedia link. In order to send large amounts of data at a high speed, the telecom industry increases the frequencies with each new generation. So here are the frequencies for the 2, the 3 and the 4G frequency ranges. And the 5G, the new 5G broadband, varies from frequencies from 2.6 gigahertz up to 60 gigahertz. And here you can find an example of a company that talks about the 28 and the 39 frequency that they work with currently. Clicking this link, you can find an example of a company talking about the frequencies they currently use. So if we go down, we can find here information that the Verizon 5G UB network currently uses 28 and 39 gigahertz. So research shows that frequencies from 10 gigahertz and up increasingly interact with oxygen molecules in the air. The frequencies start getting absorbed by the oxygen. And here is a graph from a study that's called the millimeter wave propagation.
Joe Imbriano has also claimed something down the lines of this is a war on oxygen, prince of the air, Satan, etc. And his channel is Fullerton Informer on YouTube.
Spectrum management implications. The study can be found here. Here's the study. And what it describes is that with a reduction of the signal takes place due to the oxygen in the air from 10 gigahertz and up. I will show you in the next slide. Here you can clearly see this reduction in the signal with the horizontal axis showing the gigahertz and the vertical axis showing the attenuation, the reduction of the signal. So here's 10 gigahertz and you can see an increased reduction of the signal. Here's information from a different study where the same effects were measured. Again, by clicking the link you can find the full report. And also here the horizontal axis show the frequencies and the vertical axis shows the attenuation of the signal. And we can see peaks with oxygen in the blue cycles. And here is a peak with water at 20 gigahertz and again with 60 gigahertz the oxygen peak. So stating the atmospheric absorption of electromagnetic waves. All the information can be found by clicking the link. Well, and as we know, almost 60% of the human body consists of water. For a 70 kilo person, that's about 40 liters. And we can start asking the question, what about the influence of the 20 gigahertz frequency on the water in our bodies? As here again you can see the peak for water at 20 gigahertz. The same in the other research done, also 20 gigahertz. As we now know from 10 gigahertz.
Well, all that irradiation with satellites won't cool down our planet either, of course.
And up, the oxygen and the water molecules that are present in the air start absorbing the 5G frequencies. And research shows that the properties of the oxygen molecules change under influence of these 5G frequencies. And an example of a research done can be found through this link. And here in the introduction you can read about the change in the properties of the oxygen molecules. So scientists start worrying that this change in the properties of oxygen molecules no longer allows them to affect the molecules of the oxygen molecules. And here in the introduction you can read about the
what's this? 60 gigahertz oxygen band, precise broadening and central frequencies of fine structure lines, absolute absorption profile at atmospheric pressure, and revision of mixing coefficients. Okay, well, you can watch this video on YouTube and then she has the links in the description as well. So thanks for uploading this good video.
change in the properties of the oxygen molecules. So scientists start worrying that this change in the properties of oxygen molecules no longer allows them to effectively bond with the hemoglobin in our blood, which could possibly lead to respiratory distress and may explain the increased respiratory distress experienced with corona. Here's an overview. This is a web page that shows the spread of the 5G emitters around the world. And when you go to this website, here you can choose the country that you want to look at, or you can change your position by zooming in and zooming out. So here we were looking at New York. This is New York. And for example, so this is London. And this is an overview of the 5G emitters in Paris, in France. A lot of research has been done into the influence of high 5G frequencies on our biology. And to name a few, here is an article from the Journal of Neurophysiology. And although the words used are very scientific and not easy to understand, we can see they call the hyperpolarization of the membrane and a decrease in the action potential amplitude. A decrease in the action potential, well, we think the words speak for themselves. And if you want to know more about this research, click on the link. This is an image of an excerpt from the book Magnetobiology, in which several research studies are named into the influence of the 5G frequencies on our biology. If you click on the link, you find more info. Well, we hope this video helps you to understand what the worries with 5G are about, and it will help you do your own research and form your own opinion. Thank you for watching.
Okay, so it's sort of a fast overview, a selection of information pertaining to this 60 GHz 5G phenomena.
Hello.
Uploaded by Patrick Bottle, 82 likes, 3 dislikes only, and 2,466 views. Uploaded April 13, 2020. So then we can check these links here in the description. There they are. So I'll put this link in my description as well. Vegan Realist is live, 13 watching now. And I wanted to cover that PDF. Read the PDF, review the PDF. Countless studies show 5G frequencies cause illness. I've already covered this. There are specific studies also. And that's proven beyond any reasonable doubt. But again, when you're trying to reduce the global population, and that's considered a benefit of 5G. Where was the PDF file? and perhaps this as well. We can also read this first. It seems like a long piece of text. www.01.net.
Don't meet Webmaster Technology, Tutorials, Raiders, Common Sense. Home Anecdote Daily Story Common Sense Breaking News Science and Technology Talk Musk Talks, Public Satellite Internet in 6 months, Subversion of 5G will not be 6G posted on 2,020,425. Suggested youth, believe in yourself, and try. Editor's note, this article comes from the WeChat public account Quit, ID, KBIT, author, 13, Leah Gang. Private internal test within 3 months, public test within 6 months. This is the latest timeline for Musk's satellite internet business. Just this week, with the successful launch of 60 Starlink satellites, Starlink now has 420 satellites in orbit. According to the cattle that Musk blew, their mission will be to replace optical fibers and provide high-speed, stable and cheap network connections to the world. In this magnificent blueprint, 12,000 pieces are needed. The process is now only 3.5% complete. How can Musk be Musk? He has a creative genius, the courage to break the routine, and he knows how to use commercial success to prove himself and accumulate greater potential. So with the current 420 satellites, Musk hopes that the satellite internet that he has longed for will allow some people to use it first. What kind of crazy idea is this? Let us repeat the Starlink plan first. Ambition is as big as Musk's other projects. Also introduced above, the core of this plan is SpaceX will use the Falcon 9 recyclable rocket to send 12,000 satellites to the orbital plane, and then form a satellite communications group to provide high-speed broadband services to Internet users worldwide. A group of 4,425 satellites will be located at an altitude of about 1,200 kilometers, while 7,518 satellites will be located at an altitude of about 300 kilometers and operate at different radio frequencies. Such a huge group of satellites will orbit the Earth in real time, and it is said that it can provide broadband coverage anywhere in the world at any time. 12,000 satellites, what is the concept? 3 times the total number of satellites ever launched by mankind. Musk played so much, also because satellite internet returns are great. The Wall Street Journal helped Musk calculate the postings. If everything is in accordance with the SpaceX plan, it is expected that the user of the service will exceed 40 million by 2025. And the revenue will reach $30 billion that year. And Starlink plans to show a distinctive Musk brand from birth, not only the big business in front of you, but also the great feelings for the well-being of all mankind. If you read the article now, you may not have any opinions about the internet connection. But according to the latest UN data, 57% of the world's population, 4.2 billion, still do not have internet connectivity. So SpaceX also said, Starlink will provide high-speed broadband networks in areas where access is unreliable, expensive, or completely unusable. And once Starlink plans to get through, internet access costs and internet speed will be greatly improved. How much can internet access costs be reduced? I don't know yet. But as an alternative to optical fiber, it has obvious advantages in terms of price and cost. The wiring cost of terrestrial optical cables on complex terrain is extremely expensive. Imagine building a fiber optic cable across hundreds of kilometers of unmanned area across the Tibetan Plateau and the Himalayas. What is this concept? In addition, internet speed can also be greatly improved. If the signal goes to the Starlink satellite, there will be an additional uplink and downlink delay, and the speed of the ground optical cable is probably that of vacuum optical communication 2.3. According to the assumption, 1 Gbps can be achieved, which is 180 times the current average network speed. When the time comes, a tablet, similar to the pod of satellite TV, will be used directly to use the services provided by Starlink, and no longer will operators such as Mobile, China Unicom and Telecommunications earn intermediate prices. In short, think big, do big, return great, and have a greater impact. The next generation high-speed network connection may not be 6G. It seems that Musk's satellite internet will come faster and fiercer. However, it must also be said that when this bold idea was proposed by Musk in 2015, many people did not believe it. It is not to question the ability of satellite internet itself, but to send so many satellites into space, which is too expensive. Does this require rockets? Unexpectedly, Musk's SpaceX not only solved national challenges such as rocket creation and launch, but also achieved recyclability, greatly reducing the cost of rocket transportation. Therefore, the usual operation of the 60-star arrow this Monday. Although this is not the first time, the whole process is still very shocking. I don't mind if we can help Musk broadcast again. One arrow 60 stars, every launch is still exciting. On April 23, the Kennedy Space Center in the United States. The third Starlink launch this year is launched. Familiar environment, familiar picture. Within order, SpaceX Falcon 9, carrying 60 star chain satellites, slowly ascended into the sky. About 2 minutes later, the rocket successfully separated from the first and second stages. Then the first stage of the rocket landed on the recovery ship on the Atlantic Ocean as planned. About 15 minutes later, the satellites were sent to an elliptical orbit above the Earth. Finally, SpaceX tweeted, 60 Starlink satellites were successfully deployed. It is worth noting that during this launch, SpaceX used a lot of second-hand hardware, including the Falcon 9 rocket booster. It has traveled to and from space 3 times before, including last year's demonstration mission to the Dragon spacecraft. In the future, they will eventually enter the orbit about 550 kilometers above the Earth with the help of their own propellers. After launching 420, Musk didn't want to wait any longer. 420, Musk really likes this number. Maybe you have forgotten something. Tesla is in the CES the investigation. Musk lost the chairman of Tesla's Tesla privatization tweet. Musk said it would be completed at $420. Later, he recalled with the New York Times reporter that this number was never discussed with other people. He just liked this number geally. Of course, because of the exposure of cannabis-related matters, the outside world also thinks Musk likes 420, which may be related to cannabis. This is an international festival made by a handful of bad lovers. And this time, even more importantly, Musk decided to launch satellite internet when 420 satellites were completed. And give a timetable. Private internal testing within 3 months and public beta version within 6 months. That is to say, within this year, this groundbreaking idea proposed in 2015 will be initially realized. Awesome. However, not everyone supports and looks forward to Musk's dream. Not without faith. It's Musk's dream, blocking astronomers' vision of the universe. Before they publicly vomited, the satellite constellation obscures the vision of the universe. For example, astronauts on the International Space Station have photographed these satellites from the orbital laboratory. The satellite is gradually rising above the fascinating aurora. Not only that, but shooting on the ground has also been affected. Astronomer Scott Tucker from Tucson, Arizona, shot Venus on the evening of April 17 using a long exposure method. In the photo, the satellite shows a series of white stripes in front of Venus. Other impacts may include, satellite reflective light can seriously interfere with optical and near-infrared observations. Electromagnetic radiation from satellite communication bands can cause pollution to radio astronomical observations, collisions between satellites and space-based observatories, etc. How to say, according to Musk, the brightest star in the night sky may be the satellite of their home. But astronomers' concerns and opposition, Musk doesn't care. According to his thinking and brain holes, rocket launching is so convenient. We should go to space and Mars to observe the universe. We should not stick to the rules and still stay on Earth. Musk's advice to teenagers. This thinking was also expressed by Musk in the latest communication. Just after SpaceX sent 60 star-chain satellites into space, Musk took the time to take a time, and came to the American Youth Geek Club to have a video AMA Ask Me Anything. He spent 2 hours answering many questions about geeks, boys and girls. It emphasizes that our technological development in the past is a bit out of the atomic world, but the manufacturing industry is crucial to human development in the future, so we should not only have the virtual internet innovation in front of us. You must also focus on manufacturing, especially the ability to make machines with machines. Musk also talked about the challenge of creating a rocket, not in designing a rocket itself. Silicon Valley Iron Man admits that if the difficulty of designing a rocket is 1, the difficulty of building it is 10, and the difficulty of building this production line is 100. He encourages young people to be the one who builds a production line, thinks strongly, thinks big, and solves problems in essence. Musk has repeatedly told young people who communicated that they must dare to think, dare to do things, dare to question authority, and dare to break the rules. Do not limit your thinking to current values or whose influence, but reason based on the nature of things. Of course, in this 2-hour casual question, there are still many people who care about Musk's ability to carry out multiple careers simultaneously, artificial intelligence challenges, technological innovation views, and how to deal with wealth after death. But the most impressive is probably this sentence. He can explain, how does Musk become Musk? People are self-limiting. You just gotta believe in yourself, and try. You gotta try. People can do way more than they think. In short, believe in yourself, and try. Believe in yourself, and try. Believe in yourself, and try. wwo1.net
So I've found that PDF file, and it appears to be a letter written to Ofcom, making communications work for everyone, April 23rd, 2020, and I think it's okay to read this.
Freedom of information, right to know request. Thank you for your request for information in relation to 5G and oxygen molecules. We received this request on April 9, 2020 and have considered it under the Environmental Information Regulations 2004, the EIR. The information sought is information relating to the environment, and such information should be processed in accordance with the EIR and not the Freedom of Information Act 2000. Ofcom has therefore considered this request under the EIR. You asked, provide me with links to all the scientific published research that indisputably proves that the 5G 60 GHz mm frequency does not interfere with oxygen molecules in the atmosphere, and indisputably proves that the 5G 60 GHz mm frequency does interfere with oxygen absorption within human lungs. We do not hold the information you have requested. Ofcom regulates the use of radio frequencies by mobile networks.
So, who is to be held responsible when it turns out that it does affect oxygen absorption? Who can be held responsible?
We are not responsible for setting electromagnetic field, EMF, safety levels, but we do test EMF levels near to mobile phone base stations.
Well, basically the WHO and ICNIRP have these insane unsafety standards, and they focus on the thermal effects, though the thermal effects are the least worrisome. We'll get to that in a minute. Another overview of the damaging effects, the horrible things 5G radiation, microwaves cause.
As an expert health body, Public Health England, PHE, takes the lead on public health matters associated with radio frequency electromagnetic fields, or radio waves. We have recently updated our website to provide further information and helpful links in relation to exposure to EMF, including information on A. PHE's guidance, B. Recent testing and measurements of EMF levels that we have taken near mobile base stations, and C. The requirements on mobile operators and other spectrum users for ensuring EMF levels from their networks are within internationally agreed safety limits. Countless studies show 5G frequencies cause illness. EMF Zero comments October 23, 2018. Cell phone safety. Cell towers. EMF home inspection. Nashville, Tennessee. Home inspections, safety and remediation. According to Sacramento CBS, Sacramento will be the first city in the country to get 5G cell service later this summer, but health concerns are now being raised about the equipment. 5G uses high.
So I've covered a study that shows that there is a correlation between 5G and the number of coronavirus deaths and coronavirus cases, but correlation does not imply causation, like vegan realists said that yesterday. So you can look at that for yourselves. For example, the first country to roll out 5G has most coronavirus deaths per million population. We can see this on Worldometers as well, of course. Here we should have that graphic. Takes a while to load, but it is there. Okay. And I bet it's still San Marino, deaths per million population. Number 1. I clicked on it, oh there it is. Number 1 is still San Marino, second Peru. Number 3 country with most deaths per million population is Belgium. 4 Andorra, Spain, Chile, Bolivia, Brazil, Ecuador, UK. So watch out for these high MEMS of DARPA. These hybrid insects are real, remotely controlled insects. So let's continue reading.
Frequency waves and is supposed to be 100 times faster than the current cell phone service. However, the 5G waves don't travel as far as current wireless frequencies, so instead of large cell phone tower equipment spread far apart, the 5G requires small cell sites closer together. Firefighters in San Francisco have reported memory problems and confusion after the 5G equipment was installed outside of fire stations.
The article we're reading now is on emftests.com, and the other one was that letter on ofcom.org UK. Okay.
The firefighters claim the symptoms stopped when they relocated to stations without equipment nearby. People suspect the 5G frequencies will cause problems having to do with oxygen. It was said by Joe Imbriano, an activist and researcher from Fulton, California, that when 5G reaches the frequency band of 60 GHz, the ability for a person's blood hemoglobin to bind with oxygen will be damaged. Researching his claims, they start to add up, although it is difficult to confirm the thing about oxygen and hemoglobin. This article from an accredited website about radio frequencies called Everything RF is titled "Why is the 60 GHz band not good for long-range communications?" It reports that oxygen does in fact absorb 60 GHz frequencies at an extreme level, representing a spike of absorptionability, when you see how different frequencies on the millimeter spectrum interact with oxygen. However, the graph is talking about high altitudes and the atmosphere. One would assume 5G interacts with oxygen in a similar way at our altitude. Image credit, Everything RF. So Joe Imbriano was correct to say 60 GHz 5G will be absorbed by oxygen in an intense way. Doesn't that mean, just by common sense, that the oxygen in our bodies, the oxygen we breathe and depend on, would be saturated with 60 GHz frequencies? Doesn't that mean our bodies will conduct the 5G like antennas? Furthermore, wouldn't our bodies acting as potent antennae for 60 GHz frequencies cause us all kinds of health problems? Where would we even escape to get away from them, if they saturate all major cities with this? 5G's likely ill health effects can be divided into several categories. Skin problems. An Israeli study led by Dr. Yuri D. Feldman on 5G frequencies found that they cause human sweat ducts to behave strangely. The study reports that human sweat ducts act as an array of very small, helix-shaped antennas when exposed to millimeter waves. That implies the human body could be even more conductive of it. A study on that particularly feared 5G frequency of 60 GHz, referenced by the Center for Public Integrity, concluded that more than 90% of the transmitted mmW's power is absorbed in the epidermis and dermis layer. It's not going to be good for the skin, it would appear. Heart problems. A study from 1992 reported that frequencies in the higher 5G spectrum, ranging from 53 to 78 GHz, impacted the heart rate variability in rats. In other words, higher spectrum 5G could probably cause heart arrhythmia in humans. Another Russian study on frogs whose skin was exposed to these millimeter waves found that they cause heart arrhythmia. Eye problems. In 1994, a study was carried out in Poland to determine whether or not millimeter radiation impacted the eye's transmission of light through its lens. They found that low-level millimeter wave radiation produced lens opacity in rats, associated with cataracts forming. So 5G could cause human beings to develop eye problems and cataracts, it would seem. This one is difficult to find a copy of, although the academic citation for it can be found at Chernikov, GM and Korochkin, VL and Babenko, AB and Bigdie reactions of biological systems of various complexity to the action of low-level EHF radiation. No title. Millim Waves Med Biol. 1989, 141 to 167. In addition, a Japanese experiment was conducted to see whether or not the feared 60 GHz frequency band could cause ocular problems. It found that millimeter wave antennas can cause thermal injuries of varying types of levels. The thermal effects induced by millimeter waves can apparently penetrate below the surface of the eye. This one is also difficult to find, but can be found at the academic citation Kayama M., Hanazawa M., Yamashiro Y., Sasaki H., Watanabe S., Taki M., Suzuki Y., Hirata A., Kamimura Y., Sasaki K. Acute ocular injuries caused by 60 GHz millimeter wave exposure. Health Phys. Internet. 2009, cited 2018 Mar 19, 97, 212-8. doi, 10.1097/hp.0bo13e3181 OBA 57. Immune problems. A 2002 Russian study that set out to explore the effects of 42 GHz frequencies determined that when healthy mice were exposed to them, they had a drastic reduction of activity with cells involved with immunity, about 50%. In other words, 42 GHz frequencies, close to the middle of the 5G spectrum, caused mice to suffer from immune system problems. They concluded, the whole body exposure of healthy mice to low-intensity EHF-EMR has a profound effect on the indices of nonspecific immunity. A detailed, complex-looking but not impossible to understand study was published in 2010, about the very same frequencies Verizon is currently deploying, directly in the middle of the current Verizon 5G spectrum at 35 GHz. The study was titled Protein Changes in Macrophages Induced by Plasma from Rats Exposed to 35 GHz millimeter waves. Guess what? It came from Texas-based U.S. Air Force Research Laboratories, and associated entities. The study reads, in agreement with this, prior studies conducted by our laboratory showed intravascular aggregation of leukocytes and upregulation of genes associated with immune cell recruitment and activation in the skin of rats at 6 and 24 hours after exposure to 35 GHz mmWs at 75 mW/cm2 until colonic temperature reached 41 to 428 C. Milenbaugh et al., 2008. Previous investigations also indicate that sustained MMW exposure can cause heating of internal tissues, presumably due to thermal conduction, and effects in peripheral blood cells and tissues distal to the initial city-off energy absorption. A series of experiments performed in rats demonstrated that exposure to 35 GHz MMWs at 75 mW/cm2 for approximately 44 to 80 minutes produced elevations in skin and colonic temperatures and changes in heart rate, respiration rate, and blood pressure, with eventual circulatory collapse. Fry et al. 1995, Calnes et al., 2000, Milenbaugh et al., 2006. In addition, increased levels of the oxidative stress marker, 3-nitrotyrosine, 3-NT, were detected in peripheral blood lymphocytes and neutrophils of rats exposed to 35 GHz MMWs at 75 mW/cm2 for 44 to 60 minutes until body core temperature reached 41 to 428 C. Calnes et al. 2000. Based on these results, we hypothesize that 35 GHz MMWs can elicit the release of biologically active mediators into the systemic circulation, leading to downstream responses in cells and tissues. The ability to elicit effects in immune cells has also been observed for other MMW frequencies, so the exact frequencies Verizon just unleashed are known by even the US military, to cause an increase of proteins associated with inflammation, oxidative stress, and energy metabolism. Heating of internal tissues, that's what the US military institutions admit 5G will cause. Let's back away from the research real quick and think about this with some common sense. We're composed of water and oxygen, and we breathe oxygen. Oxygen is all around us. It shouldn't take much more scientific information to suspect that frequencies known to be extremely interactive with oxygen would cause health problems in mammals, or even other life forms. They bill it as being a revolution in technology, but those risks simply seem to outweigh the benefits. According to Green Med Info, who published a very well-sourced article about 5G, 180 scientists and doctors have called for a moratorium on 5G, understanding it will be hazardous to human health. At this point, it doesn't look like anyone is going to stop it. Now, all we can do is write articles like this, and hand them out to whoever cares on the street. Sacramento is saturated with 5G now, and for the first 3 months people can use it for free, but nothing good is ever free.
So that's an overview on emftests.com. Thanks for putting all of this online. Please share this important video, this important information with other people, and shield, try to turn off cancer cell phone radiation. And perhaps I'll put some aluminum foil on the ceiling as well. 5G satellites, of course it's a higher frequency, so it's easier to block it than the lower microwave radiation frequencies. But scalar waves are not blockable without a Tesla plasma shield. So directed energy weapon torture and brainwave modification is done with the scalar technology to keep it in mind, basically, that it may affect us all more negatively even than 5G, but who knows? Is it possible that 5G satellites will wipe out all species so they can be replaced with Monsanto's genetically modified species? It's clear some people really are bloody serious about reducing the global population, and we can all wonder to what extent the 5G satellites help with this as well. And the people can make a difference. In some countries they have rolled back 5G in Switzerland, for example. They've placed the antennas, but they're switched off now. And your health is so much important than fast internet and all these things you can do with 5G. You can do better with fiber optic cable. So this is it for now. I have to bake pizza. Thank you all for watching. Please like, subscribe and share on your timeline. I will check if there's anything in the chat. Eyebrow and hello Ulrich. 2 moderators. Well, happy you guys are still watching. Thank you all for watching. Please tune in next time. Kiss for single ladies who would like one. And well, it's just because I like the color. I was searching a Snapchat thing with radiation, and people can make their own stuff, but it's all quite time consuming, so that's why I'm not doing that. There are plenty of interesting, awesome Snapchat faces. They call them lenses, and other backgrounds, etc. available. And there's another program called Chroma Cam. I've used it in previous broadcasts as well to have the green screen without a green screen, basically. So then you can use any background, and that's really awesome. So finally I'm beginning to notice some technological advancement, progress. Thank you all for watching. See you next time, and may peace travel with you all. See you next time on Perfect Society.